any service around the internet? And how do I provide that seamlessly across all applications, such as an SSL? And then, of course, we have specialists like Bluebox, MobileIron, Archer, Risk.io, and others that really help us drive out some of those specialized use cases that we've been expecting, depending upon what our business model is. So as a result of that, we're starting to see a huge amount of disruption in the vendor community as a result of the control changes, not the changes of the controls, but the location of where the content transactions are, which are requiring a different control to be implemented. Which really brings up a question of, now that we have those controls in place, the real question is the assessment model which we put forward, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about today. And I found it very interesting that as we evolve, it's really not about the controls, but it's about how we assess them. And what I see coming down is what I would call a continuous assessment model, where the concept of audits and assessments, I believe, is going to dramatically change. To do that, let's take a look at what we've been dealing with in the past. There we go. So audits, we've always had a philosophical discussion about audits and assessments in security. Audits and assessments, whether it's a SOX, SA16, an ISO is effectively a baseline, but that does not mean you are quote-unquote secure. So there is a gap, and that gap is the internal policies and implementations of any organization. The question is, does that change as a result of the technology that we're implementing, the advancements that we have today, that we can lower that bar, or we can shrink that gap? So as we take a look at this very point in time, we get an audit once a year, or maybe even twice a year. So it's a very point in time, and how they compensate for that is that they start assessing a sample rate over a period of time. So not only that are you sampling, but you a process. But you also have a significant degree of an opportunity of failure. So you can have 100 servers, and you're going to sample set roughly 25 of them, and then 75 will effectively be chock full of holes. And the security model is, I don't need to have a failure in a process in order to compromise my site. I just need to have one system that has a vulnerability that allows malicious activity. And as a result of that, the audits and assessments are very good at assessing a process, but it doesn't tell me if the sausage I'm about to eat is going to kill me. And therein lies a huge difference in how security practitioners see the audit community versus how financial audit has seen how they need to test and assure that the financial controls are in place in order to publish that report. But what we have now is something a little bit different, where we're starting to see, big arrow, what we would call first a real-time assessment model. So it's not point in time, but I can actually assess any device near real time. We can do this inline, which some services are doing, by actually analyzing the terms of service of a cloud provider as they shift on a daily basis. If the data center locations change, if there's any publication of a compromise of that cloud provider, if it moves from SSL to something else, if we all of a sudden see sensitive information flowing back and forth, that is actually done in near real time, and that can be produced in it, which changes quite dramatically the expectations of the security practitioner to say, what is the value of the old audit when I can get what I really care about in real time? This also goes to more of an interaction model, where the partnerships are in place. So if I can assess an endpoint or the security of it before or in real time and signal that cloud provider that it's free from malware inspection, it's patched, it has the right configuration setting, and I can have it log into that cloud provider, I am in real time per use case assessing that device to therefore allow it and grant it access to that content transactions that I really want to protect. Which is dramatically different than saying, I'm going to take a look at an antivirus report once a week, or I'm going to do an audit once a month, or whatever the issue might be. This is changing quite dramatically the expectations. So the expectations are less on the process and more on what is it that I truly care about to protect my content transactions. And this is a little bit different for a lot of customers that I talk to, where one, they say, I have privacy control issues in regards to Germany, so I want to make sure that any content of A, B, and C must be stored in a German data center, or must be stored in the US or Dublin, or whatever it might be. So as a result of that, I want to know if my cloud providers or their subsequent service providers change anything. I would like to know, and this is the vast majority of the security industry, I would like to know if any of my cloud providers have been compromised. And I would like to know if any of the identities have been leaked out to third parties. I would like to know if the terms of service or the vulnerabilities are introduced, or if they have an open SSL vulnerability that they haven't patched. So when we talk about the level of expectation of customers, it's very different than seeing what the process is, but I want to know the state and the health of the cloud provider at each and every moment throughout the day. Not so I can scream and bicker and cry, so I can take a risk management. I can actually go back to the business and actually have a conversation and say, the service that we used was good last week, but now it's not. We need to have a discussion